Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Future of HR in the Digital Age webinar held by Regenesis. I'd like to thank the panelists and our online guests as we explore the future of HR in this digital age. My name is Sean Sharp. I am the Sales Director at Regenesis Business School. Regenesis has been operating for 25 years this year. Can you believe it? 25 years. That's a quarter of a century. Impressive. Across 5 countries: South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, India, and USA. And Regenesis is the only one training company that shows a level 1 BE rating, and that offers a range of education from a doctorate at NQF level 10, right down to a learnership for an unemployed learner at NQF level 1. So HR and digital are 2 pillars that Regenesis has a deep interest in. At Regenesis, we have a School of IT and a School of Business, both which explore multiple facets of HR and tech. So in this webinar, we are hoping to explore what the future entails across both those platforms, HR and digital. I'm going to take some time now to welcome our panelists. I'm going to start off with Bennett. If Bennett can give us a basic introduction. Bennett, if you can also just give us some insights into your professional background, especially where it touches HR and digital. Over to you, Bennett.
Hi, good morning, or good afternoon, Sean and fellow panelists. My background, I'm mostly in sales, new business development, and then crossing over to entrepreneurship, starting businesses. And then lately, I've embarked on management consulting. So my exposure to HR has been as a business owner and also on the consulting side of it. I am, as a business owner, obviously having to uh, deal with the hiring and the upskilling and actually growing the existing talent to be able to achieve the business objectives. And in the coaching side and consulting management side, also assisting, from budding and entrepreneurs to fairly established businesses in navigating, this new terrain with all its uncertainties. I think I'll leave there as my intro.
Thank you, Bennett. I'm next going to ask Tebogo to introduce himself. Tebogo is the Inland Ops Manager at Petronas, and one of our favorite brands. I wish they did better in F1, but over to you.
Hi everyone. Hope you're well and you're doing okay. I'm just trying to navigate using my phone and my screen at the same time because my laptop has got a problem with the camera. Like I've been introduced, my name is Deboho. Ntwana is my surname. I'm an MBA from Regenesis graduate as well. So thank you for having me. So part of what I do at Petronas, I'm an inland operations manager, which I'm responsible for inland operations, so which is operations in Mpumalanga all the way to neighboring countries, Swaziland, Botswana, and the likes. So with that, so I'm responsible for recruitment of teams and talent within the Petronas business. So you guys would know for the longest time in the country, we've been owning the brand called Engine Petroleum. So which now we've currently acquired by Vivo's Energy. So which that is soon to, I think some announcement in the media have taken place, but that's soon as well to take over. But as of the 1st of October, I'm joining a company called Nono Capital. which is a private equity fund. So part of my responsibility, I'll be looking after. They're growing their portfolio within the business and looking after the various business interests and brands that they have under their stable. So thank you for having me. It's really an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you, Tebogo. Our next panelist is Miriam. Miriam is the Area Segment Manager and Relationship Executive at ABSA. Miriam, give us a little bit of background and how your background has touched HR and digital.
Absolutely. I wonder, can you see my my video? I'm trying to project it.
It's blank for now.
Is it blank for now? Okay, I'm gonna try and see if I can shift a little bit. But thank you very much for this invite. It's an absolute privilege and honor to be here, to be participating in the panel. Yes, my name is Miriam Malebo. I have been appointed the Area Segment Manager for ABSA Group in the public sector space. So we essentially look after government Schedule 3 entities, anything from your municipality to your a university, TVET colleges, and it's widespread. So specifically focused on Gauteng as a province and Limpopo. So we look after those two. A lot of our business is, as you can imagine, tender driven, being in the public sector space. So we respond to a lot of banking tenders every 5 years. All these government bodies have to actually go out there to tender for banking services. And obviously a lot of it is price driven. So we deal with a lot of people in terms of supply chain development, procurement, and not, obviously not to mention our own internal stakeholders within the bank. So I'm looking forward to being part of the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miriam. Our next panelist is Tumbile. Tumbile is the Senior Human Capital Manager at NAMPAC. Tumbile, again, if you can just give us a little bit of background, and your title says it all, but your journey with HR and digital.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that intro. My name is Tembile Mthembu. I'm the Senior Human Capital Manager at NAMPAC. I'm currently looking after the coastal region, which covers Durban, north of Durban, and Cape Town region. We also had a plant in PE, which just recently closed it. I'm a master's candidate in human resources management at UKZN. I've been in the HR space for more than 23 years. My roles have mostly been in generalist roles, but I've also done transformation in organizational development. I think it'll be very interesting. I'm looking forward to the discussions for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tumbile. And our last panelist today is Tundi. Tundi is the Group Head of Learning at Evolution. Thank you as well. We'd love to hear your background.
Thank you, Sean, and to Regenesis. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try and be very quick. I've got about 20 years worth of experience in HR development, specifically a strong background in leadership development, talent management across various organizations and different sectors. I'm currently part of a company called Evolution, or Evolution Credit, and I currently lead teams across a matrix design to deliver on global best practice solutions. Interestingly, our entire company works from home, and including our call center environment. So HR, the interface of HR and digital and people has been such a strong factor in the success of our business performance. What I do in my day job most of the time is I'm responsible for providing learning and talent management solutions to leaders and employees of organizations. And I'm a strong believer that it's important to give people opportunities for lifelong learning, as well as to increase individual and organizational effectiveness for the future world of work, where competency is the currency and the demand is placed on employees for digital dexterity. And so I'm excited to be part of what I hope will be a fulfilling and interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tundi. I think where I'm going to start off with, I've got a fantastic article published by the online magazine called HR Futures, talking about digital transformation in HR. And the quote goes saying like this: HR needs companies to navigate through the technological changes in the business world. And the role of HR has changed over time, but it's still a critical part of an organization. In fact, many companies have found that the HR departments are more important ever now, as they provide essential services to support staff throughout the stages of their careers, from hiring through to retirement. As businesses grow and evolve, however, so do the effective talent management strategies that keep up with the changes in technology, and especially with workforce demographics, market conditions, and more. So I think that pretty much sums up where we are in the HR segment in terms of digital transformation. So I've got a range of questions. I'm going to start off with a nice simple one, and I'm going to start off with Timbile. How has the role of business leader evolved in the digital age, and what are the essential skills needed for them to succeed?
I think generally, as you know, with the changes, especially after COVID, we learned new ways of working, which is talking to the fourth industrial revolution, and ensuring that we align ourselves with the changes that are happening. It was a shock for most companies when we had COVID, people adapting into new ways of working, the virtual learning and all that. And most organizations, it depended on how fast you can actually adapt on the new environment, which means change of working ways, and also discovering that actually not everyone needs to be at the office. You know, it was a new discovery for most people. And that actually ignited a lot of change in human capital, in how we respond to these changes. So with that, also, it talks to what jobs do we need in future in terms of organizational development? Do we still need people to come into offices just to be stationed in the desk? Or we can actually start adapting into remote work, you know, which is very critical. And also, it talks to work-life balance. Because we've got a diversity of workforce, which we need to actually incorporate in our work, in our workspace. So at this stage, this is where I'm going to stop, in my view. But I'm still willing to engage with my fellow panelists.
Thank you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to ask the next question to Tundi, because you have mentioned that your entire office works from home. So while some of us sit there with fear of having our staff sitting at the office all day, at home all day long, some companies have really embraced this. So I'd be very interested to find out a couple of things. And then the first question I have for you is, in the world of remote work and virtual teams, how can leaders effectively build trust among their groups? And then I'm also going to ask you a question. How do you create rapport with team members in a remote hybrid work environment?
Yeah. To be honest, there is no silver bullet, and there is no one size fits all. You know, you gotta understand your business, your there's a word now that it just escapes me, but you need to understand how your operating model is a business, your strategy as an organization, what your culture is, because all of those become factors that influence the kind of decision that you're going to make ultimately when you choose how your people are going to work, and the way that they're going to deliver their work, whether it's going to be in person, on site, or whether that's going to be virtually led. And so for leaders, it's a matter of leading by example. So leaders at all levels should demonstrate a commitment to continuous learning, as well as demonstrating a commitment to the organization and what needs to be done. It's so easy, and I think, you know, sometimes of myself, you realize in the morning that you didn't buy bread. and you think, I'm just going to nip out quickly and go get bread and milk, and you know, and you look up and you've been at the mall the whole day, And so it's important that everybody, especially with leaders leading by example, understanding that we all have a job to do and we all have delivery, and therefore instilling that trust. Personally, for me and my team, it is also saying to them continuously that life happens. I get that. Life happens. Sometimes you do need to pop out and get bread. Sometimes you do need to, you have an emergency with your children, and it's something that you can quickly get out, get back in. And it's okay, life happens, but we need to be consistent in the way that we deliver and how we do what we need to do for our organization. Because when time and your presence is no longer the currency, but your delivery becomes the currency, then that's when, that's when the chips matter. And also it starts to highlight, or rather amplify where there's a performance gap with people. When people are working from home and you're holding them accountable to their performance. And so it takes away and removes a lot of the angst, especially in a digital working model. And that's just what I found. And so ensuring that you're setting performance expectations for your people, and if there's clarity on that, there's clarity on what needs to be delivered on, as well as the way that you measure performance should be objective, should be based on the performance criteria, but should also be based on the capability of the individuals that you're measuring.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is I quite like the phrase delivery becomes the currency. I think output-based management on a hybrid model definitely works. Can you expand on one of the challenges that I've seen in the industry is, yes, companies can put hybrid-based models with a big output base, but a lot of companies talk about losing culture and rapport with team members. I mean, how do you, in this digital age, and I think it's a great example of HR and digital, how do you, as in your company, how do you fix those challenges?
Yeah. Very quickly, and I don't want to take away from my other panelists. In our organization, we have what is called social capital initiatives, right? It's part of our HR delivery strategy, and we've got a budget that supports that. So each native team, as well as cross-function teams, could be project-based, could be for whatever reason. We encourage that, and we actually back it up by providing these teams and individuals with a budget to be able to do that. And so these things happen digitally, these things remotely, these things also happen in person. So again, I'm just, there's a lot of examples that sit in our organization, but just in my team, on a monthly basis, we will have something really cool, weird, and wonderful, like instead of moving our team meeting from, having it in the morning in that 1 week in a month, we'll have it in the afternoon, and it's over juice or wine or coffee or whatever, whatever your thing is. But it allows all of us to remove ourselves, not entirely, but just to proverbially put your head down and have a conversation with people and connect with them. As well as, sometimes it's small little gifts. So I have team members sitting all across the country, and so I'll do a net florist gift to them and say, I'm thinking of you. Thanks for slugging it out this past month. I know it's been difficult. Here's a pot plant or flowers or something really small and weird and wonderful. But that's also recognizing and seeing people where they are, as opposed to waiting an entire year or a quarter or whenever you want to do a performance-based review, but to also say, I see you as my team player. And then, once or twice a year, we get together, or quarterly often we get together, have a breakfast or a dinner or a lunch. And it's one of those things that help us reconnect with each other without spreadsheets in the way, without a meeting for a customer, for an internal client or whoever. It just removes all of these. You're not a number. I see you as a person, and I see you as an individual. We've got work to do without a doubt, but I also recognize you. And that's what I think one of the biggest opportunities lies with leaders who operate in an environment that is highly digital based. But it has its challenges, and so we want to amplify the opportunities that we've got and take advantage of those opportunities and work within our organization for solutions that help us eradicate and minimize these challenges.
Thank you. Tembele?
Thank you, Sean. If I can just come in there also. I think also the change that we have actually embraced has actually helped us in a lot of cost saving. Previously, everyone would think that in order for you to do your plant visits, you have to be there physically, And right now with technology, we are able to actually connect with everyone in the world, and that actually improves even the web teams, and it gives us in terms of traveling also that's a reduced time in terms of travel. You spend more time with your families, and but also be able to interact with all your team members or your teammates, wherever they are. And it has actually taken out also the silo mentality, in that this is how we do things. Because if you work in different plants, and there's a culture that is, embraced in that plant. However, having to actually interact with colleagues in different plants, now we are moving towards one direction in terms of creating one culture that exists in the organization. So there are a lot of benefits with what is happening now, which is making us human capital to be always agile in how we do things, and making sure that there's continuous learning. People are now forced to actually learn the technology, because this is the technology that is here to stay, and we need to actually keep innovative in whatever that we do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pivot that question off to Bennett. As MD of your group, how do you feel about the cost saving potential gain of having staff work from home compared to the potential risk of low performance?
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, obviously, what happened there, especially COVID, was a catalyst to it, where many leaders started to accept that maybe some of the workforces will work remotely, will be comfortable in working remotely. And that was whether to save on office space, salaries, for instance, depending on where you're based. If you're based in urban areas, your salary range are usually higher than remote or those outlying areas. But the other benefit also of remote is that it gives you access to a wider pool of potential talent who are not, so you're not fishing from sort of the same regional or geographical urban space. So that's one plus. And then when it comes to performance, I think that we sort of grappled or battled with the concept. The previous concept was how we measure. The traditional way of measuring performance is a bit different to when now we're moving remote or even hybrid. In that it's not about inputs. It's not about the number of hours that you put in, but it's more about the results that you achieve. And as a manager, you shouldn't push people to work longer hours. You should actually try to push people to achieve more results. And your task should be to enable them to do so. So I think the main problem has been with the mindset change from traditional to now this hybrid or fully remote, in how now to manage performance and the like. But the other one, which is cropping up more and more, there's this sort of notion that says remote does not mean working from home. For instance, you have a key person, let's say in Cape Town. That specific person is working remote because you're probably based in Johannesburg. But that person says, I don't want to work from home. I want to work from a specific sort of place. But they are still remote to you, being that you are are based in Johannesburg. So there's that sort of concept as well.
Yeah, perfect. Tawoko's got his hand up. I'm going to come back to Miriam now because I'd love to hear what APSA's policy is on remote working, seeing they've got to man stores and branches. But Tawoko, you got a question?
Yeah, I think for me it was more to agree with Tembile, because I mean I know that particularly I mean as a business, I mean since the introduction of remote working, I mean we've saved close to about 18 million a year, in terms of workspace, expense that would definitely carry out throughout the years, which obviously that has given us an opportunity to rechannel that obviously onto our operations and to contribute mainly into expanding and growing our business. But I must say it has really had its own culture as well, especially from an employee engagement and well-being, particularly because I mean it has something that I have seen that has really given us the challenge, and it has also kind of altered our company culture as well, which is something that I think we really need to try to actually be able to learn and still be able to overcome. So it really has its own pros and cons for that. I think it might work for certain brands, it might work for some, it might not work for some. Because with us, it's not every business within our stable that is able to work remotely. There's businesses that still need to be maintaining, being on site and being operational mostly. And when they look at the ones that are working from home, and it's like, no, but we are putting more work and they just sitting. So this has really, I mean, created dynamics as well. So therefore, I think hence it's important. I think, I mean, I appreciate interactions like this because we get to learn from each other, and most importantly, find a way of maybe finding a solution that could actually work for us and maybe some of the viewers that are at home.
Thank you, Tawoko. Miriam, in a big corporate
Yes.
like APSA that's very customer facing and customer centric, how has this approach worked for your group?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Sean. And I really echo all the words of my fellow panelists. So it's been slightly different with the bank. The conversation more and more is that we would like to see our people back at work. We would like to see the human touch back again. We still obviously are, accepting the hybrid model. I mean, that's the future. That's the way the world is going. But we've been tracking since COVID how staff has actually been reacting to working from home, and it's we take it for granted, and it's not really for everybody. We've had an increase in the number of cases of mental health issues. We've got an internal staffing support program called ICAS, and more some of our staff are actually making use of those programs. And when we delve deeper into it, we managed to find that there are instances where staff members feel isolated. We're not all in this. We don't have all the same circumstances. Some people live alone, perhaps, and that coming into the office is a way for them to interact with people and the team and increase their morale. Right in the beginning of COVID, we also saw that people were burning out literally, because there was this concept that we called, living at work, because that's what it was. You basically, woke up in the morning, switched on your laptop, and you had your breakfast while you were busy in a Teams meeting, and then immediately thereafter there's another Teams meeting. So there was never this gap of, okay, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to walk to the water cooler, I'm going to have a chat over coffee in the canteen with a mate. So I think we need to also guard against, just focusing too much on remote working. We're still human beings at the end of the day, and we also need to understand and support our staff as well. You do get staff that is absolutely more productive, remotely, and that should be encouraged. But we must also, as leaders, pay close attention to those staff members who perhaps aren't, as lucky to kind of be in that environment as well. So yeah.
Thank you very
If I can come in short, this is very interesting. I like Miriam's view because it talks to the role of HR in this, which tells us that also in our talent acquisition, when you're recruiting, you need to look at the caliber of people that you're bringing in. You need to have a mix of both, where you have people that prefer to work from home. So that flexibility in our policies must exist in making sure that you have a diversity in your team, in allowing people that want to have that flexibility to work remotely and those that would prefer to actually come and be stationed at the office. But what this has done is also has actually improved, I would say, empowered employees, and also it has actually forced organizations to improve their processes because you need to have the integration of, if I need to work remotely, I'm able to do everything other than having to come to the office, which means everything is digitized. So I can do everything from where I am to actually get to the end process, which then talks to how we actually encourage continuous learning, but at the same time, not taking the human touch, which is why then we need to have a combination of both in making sure that we do not lose ourselves. That just was my contribution on that. Thanks, Miriam, for bringing that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam and Timbile. I'm going to ask you a question, Timbile, based on that. Regenesis is busy developing a course called Generational Management. Old people like me need to look after young Gen Zs coming into organizations that have got a very different philosophy in the working conditions. I mean, when I grew up, you talk about talent development as being one of the key drivers for the future growth of HR. Are you finding that the new generation have some of these new generation staff, their working careers started in COVID. They started in a world of a hybrid approach. They started with Teams meetings instead of face-to-face meetings. I don't think they've ever made their boss coffee in a day in their life because they've never been around their boss to make them a coffee. So how has this impacted your talent development recruitment process?
I think it starts with the maturity of business leaders. So we're talking leader manager effectiveness, because here there will be the traditional approach where you expect someone to be at the office. But the question is there a need for that? Or it's just the change that needs to happen when I'm talking about the mentality that is actually created. So that's why I'm talking about business leaders in terms of maturity. That also talks to change management initiatives that need to be employed, with having to cultivate the culture of accountability and taking responsibility. If you work remotely, you are accountable, meaning as a business leader, I have an expectation that this is what is expected in terms of your delivery, and you need to take accountability of that. I'm not managing your time as in where are you and so forth. I'm actually expected in the outcome. And also moving away of expecting someone to be sitting at the office and looking at what time the person comes in and what time do they leave. It's all about managing the output, which must be critical, which is different in because you need to understand the operation that you're working in as well. If you operate a machine, obviously you have to be physically there. I'm in the manufacturing space, so there are jobs, or should I say there are job categories that actually compel that the person must be there, because the production that needs to take place in terms of manufacturing, you need to be there to run the machine, and there's output that is measured based on what you can put in, but not all jobs need that. So we need to take that into accountability also with the policies that we develop, in making sure that it accommodates both, because we need both generations, your X and Y generation. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Tundi, I'm going to ask you another question. Seeing that you're very much predominantly based on a hybrid approach, are there any ethical considerations in leadership in development with the digital age, particularly regarding around data privacy? Miriam did mention that staff initially, and I think we all went through that cycle of waking up, turning your computer on, working throughout the day. There was no cutoff. We were doing Teams meetings at 7, 8 o'clock. All of a sudden, everyone was requesting meetings from you. your diary was full of meetings, you actually got no work done because you were servicing meetings all day long. At what stage, as business leaders and HR executives, do we look at those ethical lines in terms of data privacy? Because most people, I mean, Tebogo sitting on his cell phone, and that's nice in the digital age. He's on a Teams meeting on his cell phone. So I think all of our cell phones have those capabilities today of doing Teams meetings, of doing Zoom meetings, etc., etc. So is there a line, and how do you manage that?
So I want to answer this question twofold. One, I think in the context of South Africa in particular, we are fortunate to have, privacy laws, the likes of your POPI, Protection of Personal Information Act, and some of the companies that work in South Africa who operate on a global scale use both POPI and GDPR. That's now from a law base that there's a bit of a governance, there's a bit of a, here's the rules of the game, and here's how to work with the kind of data you collect and process, etc. But then there's also the question you're asking, the practicality of it. It can be argued that because we are working remotely, I've got my laptop on me, I'm printing very little, if at all, I'm doing everything on my, toggling between my cell phone, tablet, laptop. There's very little risk for data leakage, right? It can be argued that. The reality is, especially, let's start with us as HR colleagues. There's a lot of employee personal information that we deal with. It's a symptom of the job, and so it's, you've got so much information on a single person. It's insane sometimes. Do we work with the context of informed consent? So I know with some of my colleagues who work in recruitment, having been recruited about a year ago as well with another company, there's tons of forms that I'm filling in, and I'm giving consent to this organization for collecting different types of data on me, etc. But I'm trusting as well that this organization is going to do the right thing with my data and my information, right? And it's not going to go flying all over the place. And so there is something that goes beyond. So you've got the regulation that says here's how to treat data, and especially personal data. But then there's also company policies, and I think there's a lot of power that company policies can play in ensuring the balance between what regulation says as well as what happens in practice within the confines of the organization, and how we deal with that. So what happens when I have written something in my little notebook, and as slightly older people, we still write things down. So what happens when I've written down that I need to check on this person's salary or this person's qualification, what have you? And this book ends up in the wrong hands, even in my own home. There's very little of that governs what happens in that perspective. And so as leaders in organizations, we have to be transparent, even with our own people, and the kind of information and data that gets processed practically, but also what are the ways that we can mitigate, and what are the rules and the policies for our own organization and how we need to deal with this. And so we acknowledge that, I acknowledge that sometimes I will write, I need to check up on Tundi's the results for XYZ course. Or I may write that Tundi achieved a particular mark on whatever course, therefore it's a fail, therefore the bursary policy says that I need to recover 10,000 Rand back from Tundi. I may have written that in code or in full, however, but it's something that can end up in the wrong hands. And so now the time passes, I wrote this thing on a Friday, something I need to action on a Monday. I've dealt with it on a Monday, I've moved on. 3 months later, the book is now full, right? I'm now getting a new book. What happens with this book? And so practically, as organizations, as leaders, as HR practitioners, we need to continuously ask these more probe the regulation, probe the organization's policy, but at a practical level. Then what happens then with all of these things? Because we acknowledge that I may not have printed it, because if I've printed it, I can shred it. But I'm not going to shred my notebook that has the wealth of knowledge that sits in it. That's literally like my portfolio. And it definitely is such a fine balance, Sean, to practically do that. But the way that our company policies are written and the way that we interpret, as well as hold everybody in the organization accountable based on that policy, is so important. You really cannot write policies like, we're writing it on the back of a milk carton anymore.
Thank you, Tundi.
Very interesting, Tundi, because I'm just thinking as you were talking, sorry, I'm not trying to dominate the discussion. I'm just, thinking loud. We spoke about continuous learning, and we spoke about employee empowerment. We spoke about improving our processes, our internal processes and systems. I can talk about currently what is happening at NAMPAC. Our employees are able to update their details on the system, because people use smartphones, people use cell phones. So you are able to log in wherever you are to update your systems and your details. You can actually change your banking details, and they are aware of the system opens. People can actually log in and update whatever that they need to update. They can even print their Provident Fund statements, their RP5s, which makes this a paperless exercise also for HR professionals. So ours is to actually do data integrity or data management and use the updated information that is on the system, because employees are empowered to actually do as they please on the system. We are just there to make sure in terms of corporate governance that everything that is there is actually stored. It becomes intellectual property, so we cannot just mess up with employee data. So I think there's a benefit, on both sides. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Miriam, I think the general consensus is that the future of HR is around three assets, right? It's around employee engagement, around employee retention, and around employee development. So what is ABSA doing? What is ABSA doing in your space to foster a culture of continuous learning and adaptability to prepare your leaders for a future change in business landscape? Is there anything that you're doing that is based around these type of topics?
Oh, absolutely. And then this one is actually particularly close to our heart as the bank, is the generational management, actually. We've got a program that we're currently running throughout the bank. And we literally call it reverse mentoring. So we know, that the entrants to the market are getting younger and younger. And, when you're in a room full of people and you ask, who's a baby boomer in this room, there are fewer and fewer hands that go up. More hands are now the Gen Zs and the millennials, So, and with the reverse mentoring program, it's actually these youngsters that are coming into the bank that are becoming the mentors to their seniors. So you find guys that are 2-3 levels above, the interns that come into the bank every year. But it's those interns that actually are the ones that are imparting, knowledge on the future of banking, on better ways of doing things, on innovations, and you start empowering people beyond, just looking at somebody who's older as if they're more experienced. The world is changing, and the experiences we had yesterday are certainly not going to be experiences we're going to use necessarily tomorrow. So yeah, a big part of the bank is focused on that intergenerational sharing of skills.
I like that reverse mentoring. I think that's quite an interesting topic. I would like to see more organizations applying that, utilizing those digital skills from the youth and impacting it into organizations. Bennett, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, there is actually something that I'm involved with at the a place where I'm consulting now. It's MAN Energy Solutions. It's a German multinational, about 250 years old, with obviously headquartered in Germany, but branches all over the world. So they actually do have this mentoring program in place. And because obviously of this digital space, it allows cross mentoring between even geographies. So you find someone actually close, someone higher up in Germany mentoring someone in South Africa. And yes, as Miriam said, you find that this mentoring is not a one-way street. So you have the older, obviously, imparting, the unwritten ground rules, the shared organization, the processes, and all of this. But then from the younger, new ways, obviously, of doing things, and even new ways of looking at things, customer approach, and this, and you find that even some of the developments, like having the traditional sort of software packages that were desk based. You're having now lots of apps like a CRM on as a mobile app, um, internal company communication tools as mobile sort of version of them. So definitely agree. It is something that is used extensively overseas, internationally, and which maybe we could try and use more and more of here. Uh, yeah, it would actually help this sort of seamless transition from the boomers or the old generation to to the ones entering the workforce now.
Thank you, Bennett. I think the multinationals would be surprised how advanced South Africa is. I mean, APS is doing reverse mentoring. I mean, they got a long way to go. So my next question is for Tebogo. Tebogo, you also form part of an organization that's obviously very old and very structured. How do your mentorship and coaching plans for future digital age leaders, how are those identified in your group? So what we've seen is we've got multiple ranges of talent, people working in a hybrid and a physical online process. How then do you select staff that need to be mentored, and how do you put your staff on leadership programs thereafter?
Okay, particularly, I mean, with that, within our business, we've got a mentorship opportunity or platform. There's a program that we have, which is an executive management preparation program, where we can take up, from your graduates, I mean, that are within our graduate placement program, to actually already prepare them for our working environment, and those that are within the working environment, take them through our management preparation program. So with that, we've got a range of designed assessment that they need to go through. It's got a level of tasks and activities that they need to go through on a day-to-day basis, which from an analysis point of view, it helps us be in a position to get more understanding of this particular candidate, their qualities, their strengths and weaknesses. Therefore, and as well as an organization, it helps us be in a position to support them better, for them to be able to bring us value, so, and while obviously they growing personally themselves. We've seen that over the years it has really have worked, and it has really helped us retain some of the skills and talent that we have, because I mean, with that, I mean, on the various platforms that we have, including our internal newsletters, we've shared the journeys of some success stories as to where they've started and how they've grown, and where they are in the business. So, which obviously with that I think it has created an open environment where it showcases, opportunities for those that are interested to say there is growth opportunity. It's not only open to the external people, because sometimes you realize with employees, they tend to become skeptic to say, no, this is for people that are coming from outside the business getting the opportunity, but other than us within the business. But with something like this, I've seen it that it really showcases that we prioritize them that are already within the business to actually grow up the ranks, as opposed to just bringing in someone, externally. And with that, as well, we've really seen that with especially the change of technology, that has really also helped, with the mentorship that the colleagues were talking about earlier, cross mentorship, where you'd find new candidates, mentoring old candidates, and the old candidates were with the new ones. And what I've realized as well, because of that, it's something that obviously has created a trend that as well, obviously, as an organization, it helps us get feedback from both parties so that we know to say in terms of what is the need within the organization and how can we better improve, our offering, or what could we actually introduce that will be beneficial to them. So we've seen that it has really worked. For that, obviously, we're still trying to now explore, since now obviously we've got AI that is coming in as well, that you see younger generation are more taking advantage of it, to actually reduce, work time, onto duties. I mean, there's ChatGPT, there's a couple of AI programs that now they use to help effectively manage, obviously, their work, which others has been effective. Then others, you could just see this is copy and paste, so therefore, then obviously it also takes away the originality, of thinking in some way or the other. Whereas on a certain point of view, it also well gives us maybe in a point that we were not actually looking at or taking into consideration, as an organization. So it has really been a mixture of both, but it has really been quite a learning experience for us as an organization, and for them as the teams that we have in the business.
Thank you, Tebogo. You talk about ChatGPT. So Regenesis ran a course called ChatGPT, Career Bust or Career Boost, which was quite successful, because we found in the academic space, obviously across our thousands of students, that ChatGPT is a real tool used by our students, and it's also a real tool used by our lecturers to mark students' papers. So we need to sort of embrace digital programs moving forward. But Timbili, I've got a quote that I would like you to either disagree with or agree with. It came from one of my HR consultants overseas, and he said, to succeed in the new world of work, HR needs to transform from a compliance-focused organization into an employee-centric one. How do you feel about that?
We have a level of responsibility in terms of making sure that there is compliance in terms of having our policies and what it entails. But at the same time, there has to be a shift in more employee-centric, in what works for our employees. How do we simplify some of the policies to actually accommodate everyone in the organization, as opposed to having rigid policies, or should I say way of doing things that is actually streamlined into actually one group. So the challenge is always on us as HR professionals to ensure that how do we adapt, how do we actually become more innovative in ensuring that we listen more to our employees to make life simpler for them, and also how do we make the future of work to be more aligned into what works for our employees. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. I know I'm a bit conscious of time. I've got a couple more questions. My next questions go to Tundi. What are the most important leadership skills for the digital age, especially in your organization when it's based on a hybrid approach?
Oh, I actually have a cheat sheet for this one. I must go find it.
Yeah,
What
did you
we
ChatGPT the questions? Good.
No, well, no, that will take long. So what we did, and what we started doing in our organization is a capability assessment. So there is a significant portion of our knowledge workforce that we do this capability assessment on, and it's an internally built assessment that assesses a range of skills and competencies and capabilities that are required for any individual in any role. So organizations with far more money have really cool, nifty tech to do this kind of thing. Winking at Miriam in the bank. They've probably done something like that we have built internally. But also, in addition to that, is we've got a set of competencies and a set of skills that we are looking at specifically for our leaders that sit at our top leadership, and as well as our senior leaders across the organization. And what we're what we've done with identifying and creating that list is really cutting that into who we are as an organization. What do we value? It's all great and well to have a set of skills, but what do we actually value as an organization? In our organization, we value a lot of things around, being digitally literate, so to speak, the adaptability, things like emotional intelligence, communication, data analysis, innovation, and collaboration, which we do really well on. We've got a collaboration app that literally we run all of our projects and programs on. But more than anything, what we value in our organization is execution. So you need to be able to get stuff done. In and amongst all of that. So the ability to get things done supersedes what you will do when you're digitally literate. Getting things done means that you're able, in a way, to be more adaptable to the changing nature of your own job and in the environment that we have in the organization. Getting things done also for us, when what we value is that we don't want you or anyone in the organization to leave skeletons behind you. And so get it done in an emotionally aware manner. Get it done because you're understanding that you're using human resources as well as other types of resources, but do not leave skeletons behind. We don't necessarily want you to be liked, but we also don't want you to be the most hated person in the organization because of a single project. And so we have those, and we've articulated these capabilities, we've articulated these competencies, but they also sit as part of the KPIs and part of the performance measure within our organization, that yes, you got the what done, but how did you get it done? And that's also very important in our organization in the way that we want to sustain ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to start doing a roll-up of our opinions. I think we've just scratched the surface here, really. I think we moved on to employee engagement, and we spent a lot of time on employee engagement and employee intention around the hybrid workspace. But we've also learned that leadership skills have changed as along with the core skills of our new generation of workers coming into the workforce. So, Miriam, I'm going to ask you your final comments on future of HR and digital. What are the next big things coming, and where do you see us moving in the next couple of years?
No, thanks for that, Sean. And I must say this, we've only just scratched the surface. We could actually go on the entire day around, the digitalization of the world, really. And I like what Timbile had said earlier about, the ways of work are obviously industry dependent. It's not a one size fits all. In banking, we are obviously about relationships as well. And so it's not always ideal to be sitting at home while your customer's on a site and they're looking for funding and that sort of thing. So, and we have a saying in the bank that says, out of sight, out of mind. So you want to also just have that balance around, being productive remotely, but also having that human touch, knowing that really in our particular organization, it really is about relationships and having that trust with the customer, and the customer can only trust you if they see you from time to time. You know, you can't really have a human touch on Zoom or Teams for that matter, indefinitely. So yeah, for me, it's just walking that balance, but also realizing that the world is changing.
Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bennett, your final words. Same with you. Where do you see the next couple of years going with HR, with this new digital transformation?
Yeah, probably I would advise some advice to someone, a new manager coming in, and to say, as a new manager coming in, these are some of the skills that will be useful in managing in the digital age. Um, the continuous learning, that's prioritizing ongoing learning and staying on top of latest trends, advancements, and industry disruptions, data and analytics. Just that mindset of um, knowing that decisions are data driven, and also encouraging your teams to collect customer research, analyze data to identify patterns, gain insights that would help in driving strategic initiatives. Adaptability and experimentation, foster an environment where employees are empowered to take risks, try new ideas, learn from mistakes, rather than seeing experimentation as a potential for failure. The iteration and experimentation, helps grow innovation. And the customer facing innovation side of things, um take so much feedback from customers and co-create solutions with your customers. And finally, in the digital age, it's all about effective communication and collaboration. Before, in the past, we were all in sort of isolated offices and cubicles and this, but now it's about communication and collaboration with the whole team, either in hybrid situations or remote situations. I believe those are some of the skills that would help you in this digital sort of space.
Thank you. A lot of the skills you mentioned, we didn't even touch base on today. Just shows that we've got so much more work to do here. So thank you for your time, Bennett. Tebogo, your last words.
Okay, Bennett, as Bennett has mentioned, I mean, HR analytics and data-driven decision making is something that I think is going to be growing rapidly, and HR in particular will need to rely on. And then second point for me, it's AI and automation HR processes, where obviously artificial intelligence and automation will be streamlining HR processes. I mean, which is currently happening to a somewhat, which includes resume screening, interview scheduling, onboarding, chatbots, virtual assistants, enhancement, employees service, and these are some of the things I think that are actually already taking place, and which the future is actually going there. And we cannot shy away from digital learning and development, which I think Regenesis somewhat has really been spearheading in regards to that, especially since COVID. And I think more than anything, I think the last point I want to touch on cybersecurity. I mean, with the increasing of digitalization of HR data, there'll be heightened focus on cybersecurity measures to protect, sensitive employee information, and obviously hacking, as well. And now, obviously, certain companies, including ours, we've got things like augmented and virtual reality, which is definitely an area that is actually heading for. So I think more than anything, it's for companies and brands to really adapt to this change and embrace it. because it's a future that we're heading to. And really, I've always said people are worried that, technology will replace jobs, or particularly AI, and I always say it won't, but people using technology will be the one that would really be replacing that. So this is a learning experience for all of us HR practitioners, and be in a position to really influence and change industries out there. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I agree with the sentiments totally. Tundi, give us your last insights.
It's just a last thought. I was thinking about this, advice for aspiring leaders. My advice to aspiring leaders is to prioritize continuous learning, develop emotional intelligence, seek mentorship, embrace challenges as opportunities, and lead with authenticity and empathy. You will always be working with people as a person yourself. Take care of that.
Yeah, that's good policy. I think you need to email me those 5 points. I think I need to distribute it with my teams. Thank you. Simbile, last words?
Thank you, Sean. In closing, I think for me, what is very critical is actually to understand the environment that you're operating on, because that becomes key. And we need to be driving change management initiatives in making sure that we sort of bridge the gaps that are existing. And the focus also should be on organizational development, because we talk about continuous learning, and we need to understand what are the future roles that will be needed in the organization that will actually sustain the long-term success of the strategic intent. And how do we then harness that to make sure there's an integration with employee well-being? That's me in my closing, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. So thank you all my panelists. These type of webinars are fantastic for Regenesis, because we take this as sort of input, and we have got 2 schools that are very relevant to this topic. And one is our School of IT, and in terms of digital, we spoke about cybersecurity and data science and AI and all those programs. A lot of those programs we run for our students and for our corporate. So we try and take the latest trends, and we try to apply the latest modules into that space. And the second one is obviously our business school. And obviously HR is a key component in business, and from recruitment right through to retention and engagement. So your comments are very well taken on board from us, and we really appreciate all your time and effort. And thank you to our online audience. We ran out of time to take on some questions, but yeah, thank you everyone, and thank you for your time and attendance, and I'll be in contact over the course of the next week to say thank you. So once again, thank you everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye, everybody. Bye.